There's war going on in this world. A war on freedom.
He's acting outside of his authority by saying you can't put something that you want in your own body. That's your own personal choice, and can't nobody take that from you, you know?
You're one of these taxpayers, and these are all your documents, and this is how we're going to rob you. It's fucked up, man.
It's more war, it's more spending, it's more debt, and it's less freedom.
We don't do that here.
Some people think that you can't be radical and pragmatic.
This is what we need, is a pragmatic radicalism, not moderation. Hardcore radicalism, but smart shit.
It's not sitting in a fucking basement with a bunch of fucking nerds.
You don't know shit, and that's the thing. You have to talk to people who think differently than you.
Like, his focus is not how horrible the government is, it's how wonderful liberty and freedom are.
That's what drives us.
People are coming together more and more and more and more as the government has been failing us.
We're just getting started. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Fight for Liberty Live. Happy New Year. This is the first stream of 2022. This is the first official stream on Odyssey. So we're really excited about that. We're having the founder of Odyssey on the show tomorrow to talk about it. So I felt like it would be really hypocritical if we didn't start using Odyssey a little bit more efficiently. So we're doing that. We've got a great show for you guys tonight. But first, we're going to talk about the people that make us money, the little bit of money that we do make sometimes or once in a while. Nugg of Knowledge. They're awesome. They are the best source for all of your premium cannabis needs, the legal kind at least. Legal in all 50 states. We've got Delta-8, CBD, CBG. You know, get it in flower, edibles, vapes, tinctures, honey. Like, there's literally a CBD honey on there you can put in your tea if you just want a little bit of extra boost for the going to sleep, make the restless leg syndrome calm down, but you're not really trying to get stoned. Go for that. Like, all sorts of stuff. Go to nuggofknowledge.com. Use promo code F4L, and you're going to get 10% off your first order. And that helps out me. That helps out the network. It helps out other libertarians that are involved with Nugg of Knowledge, like Tom Queter and Dan Berman and other cool people. So go check them out. They're awesome. Speaking of Queter, Tom Queter, he is rolling for New York State Senate, and we are all really excited about his campaign. He ran in 2020. He's running again this time around, and it is going to be a really energetic, awesome campaign. Tom is a disabilities advocate. He's been active in his community most of his life, and we're just trying to keep the momentum going from his 2020 campaign where he got a little over 13%. So that was already a pretty record-setting year for the New York State Libertarian Party. So we're going to try to beat the crap out of that and actually get him to Albany. So go to tomfor52.com, check him out. You can donate to the campaign with the link in the description. Wow, we got through that whole mouthful. And now I get to tell you about Mr. Merica, the Bearded Truth, the one, the only, Jason Lyon. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. This is awesome. And breaking in the new year for you, like this is the cherry on top.
Oh, well, I couldn't have thought of any better way to start off the new year. But I feel like there's like it's like the Infinity Gauntlet, but for muddied waters, and now you're like the final Infinity Stone. Because I got Spike and Matt and Cajun and Eskimo, and now I finally.
At the end of this, you just got to snap, and then just the statism, the entire government is just going to collapse. Just finally, you got the muddy waters.
That's how it works.
There we go. There we go.
I figured I should save the best for last, though. So we're here to
building the ego over here. I love it. Of 2022, there's no better year. This is it. You've got Jason Lyon on. He's the best for Muddy Waters. Make sure you don't tell them that because I'll be fired immediately. But it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be a good year.
Well, we had Matt on. What was that, 3 or 4 weeks ago now, and talked about how you guys met and how you came onto the network. But I'm going to ask for your side of that story in a little bit. But I always like to start off with more of like a testimonial question. So I'm curious, when did you first think, like, self-identify, like, you know, this is what I am, I'm a libertarian?
So my path was kind of interesting. So I came from the right. I was grew up conservative. My entire family was all military. I had my father was in the Air Force, grandfather was in the Air Force, uncles in Air Force, Army. I believe one was Coast Guard. Had one uncle that was a K-9 unit for a local police department. Like, these are just thoroughbred, like, very conservative family values. And so from that, like, I got a little bit into politics there in the military when I joined myself as a submariner. I was a nuclear mechanic on submarines, and started getting involved with politics a little bit around the 2016 election, and got turned on by some friends to actually, it was nope, forgot his name. I can see his face. I can so I got turned on to a podcast and started listening a little bit, and was like,
You
all
get
right, he's
turned
got
on
some
to podcasts? That's
Whoo, boy, do I get turned on from podcasts. But from there, like, after getting turned on, very aroused by some of the ideas in the liberty movement. I mean, just taking basic concepts that we learn from children, or as children, and putting them into your political sphere, really just engorged myself with we're gonna keep these going. Really got engorged over these ideas of individualism, of freedom, and everything else. And so it was probably roughly around 2017, after I'd already been podcasting for a full year at this point, that I was like, yeah, I got to break these ties with conservatism, with republicanism, with all these things. And it's about damn time that I actually fight for the individual through the process of advocating for liberty.
Fuck yeah.
So
So then what I'll ask you kind of the origin story for the show, because if you were already doing that before you became a libertarian. So I know that most people that join the party, they inevitably start a podcast after that, but you actually already had one when you joined the party. So how did that happen? Why? Because you've been doing it for what, 3.5 years now, right? Something like
I've been doing this since the 2016 presidential debates.
So 5.
The way that this all broke out was I was sitting on Facebook, because that's where all terrible stories begin, and having those political discussions with people that don't care, that no one's changing their minds. And I was giving rational, reasonable discussion points, and it was getting people to reach out to me through direct messaging and back channels, and saying, hey, look, I'm really interested in your views on this. I don't want to make a public post and have people debate this. I want to know a little bit more about, like, what your thoughts are during the presidential debate, like what's going on with President Trump, what's going on with Hillary Clinton, what does this all mean? And at the time, I was a little bit of a Trumpian. We all make bad decisions, and so from that, my wife, Kelsey Lyon, she was like, at the time, she was my girlfriend. She said, you should just start making a video. And I was like, nobody's gonna want. Okay, fine, let's do this. So I jump into it and start making videos on Facebook Live.
She really twisted your arm.
Yeah, no, she was just like, you should do this. I was like, I'm an introvert. I don't like talking to people that much. Like, I hate face to face. I hate, like, all the things that this will entail. Okay, let's do this. And so started doing the videos, and then found out about Periscope. And for some of the people who've never heard of Periscope, this was the Facebook Live of Twitter, but it was on a separate app called Periscope. And I got into that and just got into a whirlwind of debates and arguments. And, you had left-leaning people, right-leaning people. You had some crazy racists, white supremacists, black supremacists, down the conspiracy hole with those things. And I started debating everybody. I was just like, let's go. Like, put me in the ring, coach. I'm ready for this. And so from there, at about 2017, I'd been fairly involved with a couple of conservative circles, couple conspiracy circles within the conservative movement, like the QAnon movement. I had some friends that were followers of that, big into that. And so I was just like, this is terrible. And so I became more rigid in that libertarianism of, even if you have the better idea, it's better to have that idea be voluntary than anything else, which is how really was the driving factor for me to become the anarchist that I am today. I'm an anarchist without labels. I don't care if you're right, left anarchist. I think the anarchy is the most important thing, but I'm also pragmatic to where the classical liberals and the minarchists, I'm willing to work with anyone in order for us to achieve those common goals. And so it was like there's just this long progress of coming together.
I like how you said anarchy without labels. That's always, or I can't say that's always been. That would be a lie. That has been the kind of title that I've adhered to over the last probably 6-7 months or so. I never was an ANCAP or an ANCOM or an AN anything. Well, like I came to anarchy because I don't believe that anyone has the best idea for anybody else's life, and you should probably just fix your own shit and figure it out and move along. And like that's why I came to anarchy. So try to be like, I think my specific anarchy is the anarchy, and your anarchy is like slightly less okay of anarchy, but like their anarchy is really stupid. It's like, no, the whole point of anarchy is that nobody's anarchy is right.
Yeah. Anarchy is just what you want it to be for yourself. And as long as you're not hurting other people and taking their stuff and following the basic principles of being a decent person, do what you got to do. Like make your way, make your happiness, and be about it. If you want to create a commune, create a commune. If you want to be rigid in like all these dimensions of property and how they function and how you work together with one another, do it. This is your life. Live it.
True that. I was in a Clubhouse room the other day, and I don't know if anybody that was in that room is going to be watching this, probably, but I'm going to shit on some friends. We're in a Clubhouse room, and this girl is in there. She seems nice enough. I've been in a couple of rooms with her before, and she self-identifies as an anarcho-communist, and she even says, I like, and like within the same breath of self-identifying is that she's talking about how like a lot of communists nowadays have it all wrong. The state is never gonna do the things that they want them to do. Centralized authority never works. But like, so I care about the burn down the system part of the anarchy part more. But when that happens, I do want to go. Like if that happens, I would choose more of like a left economic like community to associate with afterwards. And everybody like dog piles and is like basically trying to just get her to shed the communist title, because like, oh, you're not really a communist, you're a communalist, you're a mutualist, you're this, you're that. And they're like debating her on what she believes. And I cut in pretty early on, but apparently no one was listening to what I had to say at this point. And I was like, maybe instead of arguing with her about what she believes, you could listen, and maybe you might learn a thing or two about why you guys shouldn't be so obnoxious to people that self-identify as communists, because maybe they might have an idea that's good. In fact, most of the time they do.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane how ready people are just to shut down other people because it's a different label than your own. I still have some ties, and I never even finished off my circle of how I got to Libertarian Party, but I still have a lot of ties in my local government or my local area with Republican groups and conservative groups and everything else, and I've also got it with Democratic groups. But like talking with some of them, even I was talking to a group of Republicans, and of course it was all versus me, but I was like, one person had an issue because I said, Donald J. Trump was formerly a Democrat, still pushed Democrat agenda. We had like this candidate, this person, this politician, just talking about like how the Republican Party overall has been shifting to the left. And I was like, some of these things are with merit. Like some of the things the Republican Party was wrong on and it is shifted left on. Absolutely 100%. It's the right decision.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes us to actually look at what is happening. It takes us looking at these ideas and rather than just listening to attack them and to refute them, listen to them, understand them, have some empathy about them, understand why that person has taken the stance that they have. And through those things, we all can become better. And it's one of those things that I'm definitely guilty of it. I'm definitely guilty of getting quick to respond. But as soon as we take that breath and we allow for the anarcho-communist to come in and say, look, I want anarchy, and then I want to have a commune at the end of this. I want to have a very left-leaning society through a voluntary means at the end of this. It's like, sure, I don't want to live in that community, I don't think, but maybe I will. Maybe at that point, maybe I will. But why are we arguing over this in the first place? We should be arguing, how do we topple the state right now?
Right.
And I think that's another big issue that we have to tackle.
It was really fun. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't want to.
No, you're good.
Keep cutting off your story.
No, you're fine. No, it wasn't you cutting it off. It was just me taking terrible circles. So how I got to the Libertarian Party. So through all these discussions and debates with people across the entire spectrum, I met a good friend, and some people are going to remember him. Some people may not, but his name is Shane Sweeney here in South Carolina. He had a radio show. So he was second vice chair of the SCLP back a couple of years ago. He had a radio show down in Columbia, South Carolina. Did you lose me? I don't see me. Okay, good. He had a radio show down in Columbia, South Carolina. I went on his radio show. He came and joined me on my podcast. He was hanging out at my house, brought an anarcho-capitalist flag. So he is ANCAP. And I knocked it over onto the floor one time, and me being from like the military, I was like, oh no, picked it up and like dusted it off and was like, I apologize for like desecrating your flag. And he's like, no, magic sky cloth can fall. And, and this was before I was like I was a minarchist at the time. And I was like, I really want to fight for the individuals. And he's like, so join the party. I was like, so to fight for the individuals, I need to join the collective to fight for I was like, do you see how this is hypocritical? And he said, so do you want to vote for your shoes to be saved, or do you want to just sit idly by and let your shoes be taken? Well, fuck. All right. So I guess I'm in the party now. Signed up for the party, joined in a year and a half later. I became county chair. Had to step down for a political position that I was offered. Just the conflict of interest in that. So from going from like, I hate groups of people to I have to join this group of people to hate groups of people and to fight against it. That was like my full transition to this. And so to finish off your second question,
I do love that irony, especially when you get into like the national party structure, because it's like we are a group of people based on the fundamental idea that no one entity should make decisions for, or has the capacity to be able to make decisions for the entirety of the United States, and that we should not even attempt to do so. So we made an organization that attempts to make decisions for the entire United States.
It's beautiful.
Dude, what the fuck, guys?
It makes sense if you don't think about it. All right. So
exactly that.
No, and I think that there's like laws and legal reasons for it, which just hurts my brain. But we have to be such statists in order to follow it. I mean, I know like even at the state level, like we have so many laws that our state party
we wouldn't be able to function as the movement and as the party and like do the things that we've been able to do. We wouldn't have elected officials making a difference across the country without it. But it's still it's fucking dumb when you think about it.
So dumb. Yes. Especially when you look at the way that they're actually functioning, when you look at the different campaigns going on, when you see like the different factions and the way that they're fighting against one another and everything else going on with it. It's just like, yeah, we can have like a stand to like just a poster board of here's what the LNC would look like. And then we could just have that be the LNC and we would all be better off from that. And we could do without it. I want to see a way that we can dismantle that in some way so they have less authority over the different states. Because I think at the end of the day, a lot of us believe in that federalist idea of decentralize as much as we can. Have the LNC be there for as little as we can. Practice the minarchy because we can't have anarchy at that level. And let's move forward with following with what good states have done. So like Pennsylvania having 100 people get elected this last season. Have more states follow in that pursuance. Have states not follow in the pursuance of some of the other states, like what Delaware may have done, or what New Hampshire may have gotten caught with, or like, you know, all these other bad things. Like, hey, lessons learned. Don't do this stuff, and just move on.
Right. Yeah. So like I said, like I understand why it exists. What's interesting for me in my journey to anarchy, I tell people that the single most this event that's single most responsible for me becoming an anarchist is me joining the New York State Libertarian Party State Committee. Because I realized that not even libertarians can govern themselves or govern other people or work together in an organizational structure. Like, even if every elected official in the entire country was a libertarian, it would be such a better country than what we have right now, sure, but it would still be shit. It would still be awful, and less would get done, and like there would be more. It would in some ways it would be worse. It would be objectively worse. And so I'm like, no, I think nothing, like anarchy, not liberty, not minarchy, not libertarian constitutionalism, no, anarchy, because this is bullshit. And I think we see that a lot with the LNC as well. Like politics, like originally, like, and in a lot of people's minds and in like your history books and in middle school curriculums and whatever, politics is a public service job, right? Like you are a servant. You're deciding like, I'm going to sacrifice these couple of years of my life to go do things for other people and serve my community. And if the Libertarian Party, like in most circumstances, operates off of the same mentality, but then you have the people who are there for the power and not for the service, and they fuck it up. And there will always be people, once there's any amount of like actual power to be had, there will be people that will touch it. There will be people that will love it. And there will be people that chase it. Even if it's a pathetic little pointless, useless, worthless party like the Libertarian Party in the United States, people will still chase that power to rule that little thing. You see this with fucking like Sunday school groups and churches and like mom groups at middle schools and shit, like everywhere. Like you get that little bit of power over a couple of people around you, and you love it. Any kind of clout. You're right.
Yeah. Anything. Yeah, no, and it's absolutely right. And I mean, we see this, and I think one of the best descriptions that I can think of, if a libertarian ran society based off of the LNC members, based on like our convention, based on any kind of function within the LNC, like we just try to get the minutes approved would require like X amount of amendments, because people are constantly saying, using Robert's Rules of Order, like just destroying it. And 45 minutes later, we might get the amendments approved, and now we've got to amend them in order to push them all back. Like,
just get me wrong, I get hard using Robert's Rules of Order. Like, I love Robert's Rules, but it's bullshit. Like at the same time, like I love it, but it's awful.
Yeah, it's like, yes, it works, and you guys are killing me with it. Like, I don't point of privilege. What? No, you have no privilege. Like, you've lost all privileges. You've lost all rights. Just sit there silently for the next until we finish this, please. No.
I like it at the state committees because it's like 70 people or so, like 60 to 70 people. It's like a perfect number to use Robert's Rules because you need it. Otherwise, it's anarchy. And lols.
Not that it's a bad thing.
Right. Anarchy in the bad, like normie context, right? But it's also like not too many people to where like the points of order and stuff like that are still like ridiculous and clog it up. And it's really fun to play like that. My state chair calls it procedural jujitsu. Of like, timing your, like knowing how to use Robert's Rules to get what you want. It feels like politics. Like it feels like I'm in an episode of House of Cards, and I'm like I like was actually like whipping for votes for a motion a month ago, and was like messaging people on side, and like we were doing a whole bunch of stuff, and there were motions that were tried to sideline what I was doing, and then like we had to fight that, and then like it was all this stuff took up like 25 minutes of the meeting, and it was so much fun. Like I felt like such a nerd, but I was having so much fun.
It's so much fun when you get to play those mental games of chess, and you're absolutely right. And it's also is like frustrating because it's like there's so many things that we're trying to get done that's like common sense. For example, we had at the South Carolina Libertarian Party convention this last year, we had an amendment that was trying to be applied to where instead of calling government like a legitimate government, so basically like a legitimate government would protect the rights of the people, yada yada yada, right? The basics things of what a minarchist would agree that a legitimate government would do. And instead of classifying it as a legitimate government, we said what a tolerable government is. Because if you're a minarchist, this would be a very tolerable government. This is what you would tolerate. You don't want a government doing above and beyond that. But for an anarchist, we would say, look, if we have to have a government, this is what we would tolerate. And just making that little bit of a distinction, which I think as an anarchist or as a minarchist, this is something that we should all be able to agree upon. This was controversial. It's like, I get that you want to like have these ties to legitimacy, but not everyone sees government as a legitimate function, and especially in the way that it's shown historically, where it doesn't care what you say. So it's things like that where it's like, I love the mental chess. I love like playing those things of like, we want to have these things. We want to see like how to change the tides of war. But then it's like, at the same time, we're all libertarians. Like, let's get through this, please.
I hate state conventions for that reason, because like it is the place for that bullshit, right? For the most part, you know, it's where anyone gets to make a motion or a resolution or whatever, and so like it is the place for the bullshit. But it's also the place where everyone has fun and gets drunk and like hangs out and smokes and meets people. And so like whenever that shit is going on at a state convention, especially because most of the state conventions I go to aren't my own, it's just like, I don't care. Get done with the shit so I can go do mushrooms, please.
Yeah, no, I even though it was my own state convention, I may or may not have walked out of the room several times just to be like, I'm gonna go do something else, because stop wasting my time.
I literally didn't buy a ticket to my convention. I came and I tabled for Queeter and for a couple of other things that I'm involved with that had a table there. I was there. I never once entered the actual room and like listened to anything. And then we had a committee meeting the next day that I did not attend because fuck it.
This sounds a lot like our former presidential candidate. But she didn't table anything. She literally like showed up for like 5 minutes. I was like, oh sweet, there she is. Oh sweet, there she goes.
See, I've still never met her.
She lives 10 minutes from me. If you want to come meet her, she lives in the same county as me. I've seen her a couple times.
Oh, nice.
That's about it.
Have you seen the dungeon?
Oh, I've seen the house. Have not seen the dungeon. Will not figure out if Switzerland.
No, she's never coming on my show.
Yeah, I do not think that I ever want to see if One Giant Switzerland is the safe word or not. But I have a feeling that would be it.
It is in my house.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I am clearly not the biggest fan of her. But for good reason. Good reasons.
I couldn't imagine why.
Yeah.
Does it have anything to do with your partnership with a former running mate of hers?
No, not at all.
That's fair. Yeah, we all have our own reasons. It has nothing to do with like.
Well, Spike has his reasons, and my reasons. Some of them are very similar. Some of them are. She lives in the same county as me, and I've only seen her like a handful of times. Like, how are you going to ignore your entire state chapter? How are you going to ignore your county chapter? And they go, I'm going to run for president of the United States. All right, sweet. Here, you got the nomination. Are you going to come back? Okay. See, have fun at college. Have fun doing stuff.
I don't think that there's any competition here on that one. I have not been. I shaved way too recently to enter into that competition with.
I was clean shaven this morning, so it's just
It's the
this
Santa
is my 5
Claus?
o'clock shadow. Yeah,
Oh.
this is my 5 o'clock shadow. So I'll try to trim a little bit sooner.
Can't tell if that's Matt or Sarah though. So
it could have been me as well. Like, who knows?
That is true. Just commenting on your own shit. That sounds like some shit I would do.
I would be tempted. Now I'm like tempted. Now I'm like pulling up the YouTube video. Like, what do I need to say? What do I need to say? No. But yeah. So I think. Yep. I'm gonna say it. So on our Zoom call on Muddy Waters Media, so we were doing a monthly subscriber Zoom call.
That was a hoot. I was watching that.
That was a hoot. Yep, we'll call it that. We had for the third Zoom call, we had the opening, and we actually had Joe Jorgensen, which is one of the first things that me, Spike, Matt, people across our state were like, this can't be our candidate. Because when Joe Jorgensen was asked, hey, how do you feel about sex work? Her answer was, I don't think that the voters want to hear about sex work, so I would change the conversation to income tax. So do you want to answer the question about sex work? No? Okay. So then later on that night, we had at the presidential debate and teed it up again for her. Hey, could you talk about sex work? No, I'm going to talk about income tax. So you have somebody who is, by her own campaign, vivacious, who can't even muster the energy to discuss something like sex work.
Vivacious. Who the fuck called her vivacious?
Campaign team.
God,
So you have somebody who's not even willing to talk about some of the issues. Two libertarians in a libertarian setting surrounded by nothing but libertarians.
Yeah, that's the place that you can go into the dumb issues that you don't even care about as a person.
Teach us. Yeah. We teed up, like, we didn't ask you for like some weird questions. We didn't ask you for like questionable morality things. We asked you, sex work. Is it work? She sucks from Muddy Waters Media. My hands are up here. Look, no hands. That wasn't me. But yes. So Joe Jorgensen.
Now I'm just blaming all of those comments on Spike.
I was actually tempted to give it to Spike too. It crossed my mind, but no, I recently saw a poll that was done, and it was something to the effect of like 8% in favor, 92% against her running as the presidential candidate in 2024, which I think is the best thing ever. I think that she may have some value out there in the world. I think so. She's working for a liberty organization. She's the president for a liberty organization. Spread your vivaciousness over there. Bring about some liberty through those channels. But I think as a presidential candidate, we need somebody who's got like a lot of great charisma, who has great messaging, who's able to really set the trees ablaze, the bushes ablaze with liberty across this nation of ours. And it's just not her. So
yeah, it's obviously Vermin Supreme.
Obviously, clearly Vermin Supreme. I will,
or maybe someone that once ran alongside Vermin Supreme.
I would love to see Spike be that. And I will say that after watching a recent episode of Muddy Waters Media, that sadly there was an announcement made that Matt Wright will not be running for president in 2024. So I think we're out of options here, but we'll figure out who is going to be running, and I'm excited for that nonetheless.
Yeah, I asked Spike in Michigan, I think it was, if he was running for president in 24, and he was like, no. And he was like, but I don't know if I have a choice in the matter.
Yeah. And like,
I was like, you don't, bro.
No,
you don't.
He's got like 330 or 365 million people that are like, we need Spike. They just don't know it yet. But Spike would really be able to do a large impact there. And so I think that the one thing that a lot of people don't realize before they get involved with this, and some of the campaigns, when they run for this office or run for the nomination, that they don't realize just how taxing this is, right? You're running 16, 18-hour days.
It's because most of them only do it half-assedly, so they've never actually felt the struggle of running a real campaign.
Yeah. And that's like the first eye opener. And I was amazed at like Spike's tenacity throughout all of that. Watching him continue to do shows throughout the campaign, watching him hit, him and Joe both did their own bus tours across the country. They hit most of the states. There was some like 45 states, 48 states.
I think combined they did 48.
Yeah. And just pounding the pavement, and it was amazing to watch them do that. Spike fell asleep during one of the shows on Muddy Waters Media, which was hilarious. But watching him be able to push through that, and then realize this guy also has MS. Like, this guy has an actual no shit disability that's supposed to like make him more lethargic, keep him down and slow him down. And just the fire, the burning and yearning for liberty kept him going and inspired. It's so inspirational. So I hope that if Spike does run, that he, really does well for us. If he doesn't run, that he's able to co-opt with those who are running and really set these campaigns up to be not successful in the way of like their own personal success, but be able to drive liberty across this country. And I think that that's what Spike really is teeing up right now with the movement that he's created.
Yeah, we really, really, really need to have the cooperation of all of the candidates after the nomination, the way that the other two parties do it. Like, I'm not a vote gold like you're told kind of person, right? Like, but there is an element of truth to that mentality and an element of accuracy of like, you claim to be part of this team, be a part of this team, even if you're like even if you're on the defense and the offense is on the field, like, you're still rooting for the offense, right? You don't want the offense to fuck up and turn it over so that you get back on the field quicker as a defensive player. Like, that's not in your head, right? We need to act like that. And, when like Bernie Sanders did more campaign events for Joe Biden than Joe Biden did post his nomination. That's just a fact. It's a sad fact, but it's a fact. Combined, the other candidates did, I think, 4 or 5 times as many events as Biden did. Because he had all of them. He had Sanders, he had Klobuchar, he had Warren, he had Buttigieg, he had, Harris was his running mate, so that's, I guess, different, but everybody out there doing events for him. So there was a Joe Biden event happening in like 3 or 4 states at a time every day for the entirety of the campaign. We can do that. We have the bandwidth to do that. We have the people. We definitely have, like, just take all of the 2020 candidates. We've got Justin Amash, we've got Dan Berman, we've got Judge Jim Gray, we've got Lincoln Chafee, who I know some people feel don't like, but he's still here. He's still a libertarian. He's still a member of the party. He's still speaking on behalf of marijuana decriminalization bills in Wyoming. Like, he's doing stuff. Vermin Supreme and Jorgensen, and then throw in Spike and Dave Smith on top of that for this year's contenders. Like, if all of those people stuck around and were working together post the campaign, one of those people's a candidate, one of them's a running mate, and then the rest of them exist. Throw in Larry Sharp, Donald Rainwater, Will Henry, also from Indiana, what's his name? Ricky Dale Harrington Jr. We have some powerhouses in the movement now that if we actually mobilized them in their areas as surrogates for our national candidate in 2024, we could actually do something.
Yeah.
Man, I just ranted about that. My bad.
No, I love it. No, I'm over here. I'm getting jazzed up. I'm getting excited about it. No, absolutely. And that's one of those things, right? Is that people have to swallow that and go, I'm here for the movement. I'm here for the cause. I'm here for the liberty. I'm here to make a difference. And at the end of the day, come together to be able to work on that. And that doesn't require us, right? here's the thing that I think that a lot of libertarians don't realize is when we get into these big arguments with one another, when we fight it with one another, we're usually fighting over like the 5%, the 3% differences that we have, while we agree on 95, 97% of things already. So even when we have these big disagreements, it may be on one issue here or there, right? You mentioned Chafee, and you know, a lot of people don't like him for his Second Amendment stance, but that's fine. Don't have him talk about Second Amendment stuff. Have him talk about libertarianism. And we can create those movements. We can create those pockets and use all these different people. It not only helps promote those the nominees that we have, but it also promotes them to be like, hey, look, we are a growing force. We are a legitimate force that is growing in order to set you free, to leave you alone. Like, that's all we want to do here. And so we have those crazy opportunities, and I would love to see the building of it, just like what you were talking about, because it's incredibly vital that we actually look like we give a damn, instead of just saying, hey, look, it's your race, I'm hands off, you do what you want to do, I'm gonna go play with my Legos, because it's so much better. We have to be a part of this, and that's one of the biggest things that we're missing. And here's one of the things that I also see as an issue is that a lot of libertarians, when it comes to those big nomination seats, they've got to be able to put their ego to the side. I know when we talk about the three leading candidates for presidential candidate, right? That's Dave Smith, that's Spike Cohen, and that's Justin Amash. Between those three, if they don't make it, I don't think that Justin Amash and I don't think that Dave Smith would be readily available, will be happy, will be super excited about being a vice presidential candidate. If they're not top of the ticket, do we see them sticking around for that race? And
I don't see him taking bottom ticket, but I see Dave. I have my issues with Dave Smith. I've said some of them publicly. I won't say very many of them too publicly because it's not something that I really care about. But one thing that I will say to his benefit is that if he runs for and loses the nomination to Spike Cohen, I don't know if it's Amash, but if it's Spike, I think that he will be a good surrogate and ally and friend to the campaign and stick around and see it through. I don't know if Justin wins, but I think even if Justin wins, he would do that. He said so. I basically made him say so on my show when I had him on a couple months back when it first became a conversation of him possibly running. I was like, if we can see you guys run a clean race and have the two losers back up the winner throughout the campaign, and basically all three of you are running for president from now until the end of the election, that would be amazing. And he agreed. I don't know about Justin sticking around if he loses. I don't know him as well as I know Dave and Spike.
Yeah. And I was just thinking, I was thinking about the three individuals like as what they are, right? And think about their strengths and their weaknesses. And this is something that, like, you know, when I talk to delegates, this is what's important, right? We don't want to just have a popularity contest. And I feel like that's what we've gotten to with a lot of these candidates is who's more popular, right? If you're a Mises person, right, Dave Smith's going to be top in your charts. If you're a minarchist or a classical liberal, then maybe Justin Amash is top in your chart. Or if you have listened to Spike, regardless of where you are on the spectrum, you're saying Spike's my guy. But what is Spike great at? Spike is great at charisma. Spike is great at messaging. He's great at empathy. He's great at reaching out and getting people. He's able to sell the message and put it in a digestible way for everybody. Fantastic. Amazing. What is Dave Smith great at? Dave Smith is great at like that deep dive into intellectualism. He's a good candidate for like the bottom right of the party of, you know, the anarcho-capitalism. He's good in that faction. He's got a huge following on social media. He's growing. He's got a huge podcast. He's got a lot of listeners. People love him, right?
And he's a good public speaker. Is something else. Like he spoke at the Meacock Bash at the Pennsylvania State Convention this year, and that was easily top 5 speeches I've ever seen in person from like any candidate or anyone. And I've like gone back, watched a bunch of like Ron Paul videos. In fact, I had people that night tell me that they worked on Ron Paul's campaign and had never seen a speech that good.
Wow.
He is very good at working a room and firing them up. So being like an opener for the candidate at an event or doing his own event as a surrogate event, like would be fantastic at for sure.
Yeah. No, and so that's like something that we have to put into this perspective of like, where is he going to be good at? And then we look at Justin Amash himself. Justin Amash is the only one of the three that has experience in DC. He's the only one who has been a part of like the entire process from the other side of the curtain. And so he's got a huge donor list. He's got the financial backing. So if we look back at the Bill Weld, right? Bill Weld, that was his thing, was like having that network, being able to reach out, get donors. He was really the guy that was able to move the ticket around because of the financial backing of that. So Justin Amash is great for that aspect. He's also is that guy that is very.
I love that you
polished.
just said that Amash's benefit is that he's a lot like Bill Weld.
You know,
I feel like that's everyone's criticism of him.
in many ways, that it would be a very honest critique, but there's also some positive attributes of that as well.
Right.
Just
there's a reason we went with Weld.
Yeah.
I mean, I say we like I was a member of the party when that decision was made, which I wasn't.
It wasn't necessarily because of us. I wasn't a part of the party either, but yes. It was mostly because Gary Johnson was like the first candidate to go, hey, this guy, he's my guy, go with him. Which can I just say, I was terrified during the 2020 nominations when Joe Jorgensen said, hey, nope, forgot his name, Bowtie.
Oh wow, I'm gonna base on his name too.
Georgia.
Yeah, that guy.
Yep, a fantastic guy. I'm mad that I can't remember his name. But she was like, he's my guy. Pick him. He's my guy. And I was like, no, Spike Cohen. No, that's not Spike Cohen. You got to pick Spike Cohen. And sure enough, the delegates made the right decision and took off with that. But no, it's gonna bother me now. Are you looking it up? I hope you're looking it up.
I'm trying to find it. I don't know. I'm not sure where to look this up though.
Chase Oliver was big on the bow tie.
Yes. Chase is good people.
Chase is amazing. I love Chase. Tarian. Bow tie. That's all. That's all I'm gonna put. No. All right. John Mons. There we go. Nailed it.
There we go. Thank you. Jesus Christ, that was gonna bother me. So
John Mons. Oh, and just as soon as I presume.
Thank you, Sarah, Spike, Matt, Jason, conglomeration person.
Yes, John Mons, John Mons. Yes. Yeah, John Mons. Like she was just going after him, and I was like, no, it's got to be Spike. And just watching that unfold was just
At the time, I was pro. Like in the moment, like I actually tuned back in just before the VP election. I barely watched that convention. I wasn't a delegate, and I don't blame you. Yeah, as we already discussed our feelings for conventions.
The shit show.
I definitely wasn't gonna watch it on my TV. Fuck that shit. I tuned back in, and I was like, okay, Armstrong. Like definitely, like given the choices we've got here. Armstrong is the clear best choice. And then she endorsed Mons, and I was like, I mean, he's all right, but Armstrong would be better. And I honestly, I mean, I think that they kind of split the vote a little bit there and helped Spike for sure. But also Spike had it in the bag. We actually talked about that when he came on the show, that how much work he put into that nomination. And you know, there really wasn't a chance for him to lose that. He walked in the victor already.
And especially when Armstrong ceded to Spike and said, I support and endorse Spike Cohen, and that sealed the coffin for sure. And I was, oh man, that took us off to a whole nother level. I was sitting at my father's house, and Kelsey was sitting across the room from me, and I just started screaming. I was like, Spike Cohen is going to be the next VP for the Libertarian Party. She's like, what? And we took off, and the rest of my family are they look down at libertarians because statism is so much better. But they were like, that's really cool that your friend is going to be like a vice presidential candidate of a third place party. I was like, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah,
thanks.
I mean, it is cool. Like, it's not. It's obviously it's not as cool as being the Joe Biden's VP pick or something, right? He's not going to be as famous, but however, it's still really fucking cool.
Oh,
I sometimes I feel numb to it because we do this kind of shit a lot, and we talk to gubernatorial candidates and VP candidates and I talked to a couple of the presidential candidates from 2020 on the show, and but these people are doing some awesome work, and they're kind of famous.
And they're in the history books. That's the weird thing, right? History books are being written right now.
Well, that answers who's running this.
Yeah. Giggled like Jason when he's excited.
Giggled like Jason.
Yes, like a schoolgirl. But no, history books are being written right now, and while they're being written, these are people that are going into the history books, right? Spike Cohen in the history books, Matt Wright in the history books, David Fite for covering all of these amazing candidates going in the history books. We are shaping history as we go about, and that's the thing that it blows my mind every time I think about it. Every time that we change one person's life, how are we going to be impacting the history books of the future? It blows my mind. But yeah, no, it's a huge thing. I just didn't like the smugness that came along with those comments. Cool, he got bronze already. Yeah, well, he did. What's up?
I mean, at least we beat fucking Hawkins, right?
Yeah,
not in New York, but nationally we did.
Yeah. Should be expected, though. I really wanted to see them debate. That was my big thing. Hawkins, vice presidential.
Do you know that story?
I do not.
I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about this. Fuck it. I don't care. No one's going to watch this that's going to be able to get me into trouble, except for maybe Spike. There was supposed to be a debate hosted by Killer Mike, who agreed to this, as did Howie. And Jorgensen didn't.
I think I know why.
Because she would have lost.
And it may have been longer than 10 minutes. Matt is giggling right now, like Jason does.
Yeah, that's the thing that I know about that I definitely shouldn't have talked about, but oh well.
It happens. It totally happens.
But yeah, Killer fucking Mike, run the jewels is libertarian. Let's get on that.
Yeah. Exposure. Any publicity is good publicity as long as you're not as boring as a wet gym sock.
Or blatantly idiotic, cough cough LP New Hampshire, cough cough.
The opportunity, the bar is set so freaking low. It's amazing that we trip over it. Yes, I'm familiar with a lot of the stories that happened there, but I did not know about that, and that makes perfect sense because I know that there was a discussion about it, and I think that there was even a vice presidential nomination discussion or debate there. And I really wish I would have seen that through. I wanted to see Spike go out there and debate because the last big debate that I saw, he debated a microwave, and that microwave had to reset a couple times. That was. Did you get a bear witness to that?
I did not.
So that was the lead singer for Trapped debated
Oh.
Spike over economic theory. And for about the first half of the debate, had his camera pointed towards his kitchen instead of on himself, and just got thrashed by Spike. And it was a beautiful, amazing, entertaining bit of.
I saw a lot of memes come out of that, but I didn't actually see the debate or know what they were talking about.
Yeah, no, it was beautiful. It was actually the greatest. He used the greatest analogy I've seen for explaining why tariffs are bad. And it was like basically like if you have a lemonade stand here and you have a lemonade stand 50 miles away, and the lemonade stand here cost 50 cents or $1, but it only costs 50 miles away, it's a penny, right? You're gonna have people that are gonna go those 50 miles and get the lemonade for stupid cheap. I think I've put way too many miles in between here, but nonetheless, you get the idea. It's a lot cheaper to go that far and to get it. And he said, if your problem is that the lemonade there is too cheap, your problem is that it's too expensive here, and so we have to address that, right? Talk about taxes, talk about regulations, talk about occupational licensing, et cetera, et cetera. Instead of just trying to punch those guys over there for selling lemonade for so cheap, you actually have to address it at home, and that would net you the results that you're looking for. And it was things like that, but the guy was too drunk and too illiterate to understand what Spike was eloquently talking to his microwave about for him to pick up what was being put down.
Ouch.
So yeah,
man. Well, we've gotten completely off of talking about you and your show and the actual interview here.
I love it. Welcome to libertarianism.
Right. So who's the guest that you've had on that had you like shitting your pants in excitement the most?
Oh, I have to give. So in nervousness, I wouldn't say in excitedness, because I was so nervous because I was genuinely worried about screwing it up. The number one and number two, I'm not going to say which one is which, but it was Hannah Cox and Spike Cohen, because this was post Spike running, and it was Hannah Cox very recently. And so with the two of them, I was genuinely concerned with. I am not that intelligent of a person. I'm just your average Joe Schmo.
That's definitely the quote graphic coming out.
Yes.
Of this. I am not an intelligent person.
I am not an intelligent person. And so having two absolute brilliant people who have a wealth of knowledge across the board, who are very articulate and have a huge backing behind them, who have major successes in changing the way that people look at the world around us, I was genuinely scared, but super excited at the same time. Like, I didn't want to mess it up, but I was like, these are opportunities that not many people get. And so I was incredibly grateful for both of those. And so it was phenomenal. So I had Spike come on, and he talked about qualified immunity and just lays it down there. And we had criminal justice reform is my big ticket thing. That's what it's one of my driving passions. Same. And so for the two of us to be able to collaborate on that and come together with it, it went through seamlessly and flawlessly. He made me laugh a bunch. I made him chuckle a couple times here and there. And it was a beautiful thing that we came together with. And I'm super excited for that. Hannah Cox, I had her come on. And we started off with talking about the death penalty and moved from that of being able to sell the death penalty to the conservative side of the aisle, which is generally where you'll find the most opposition, to talking about specific cases like the Kyle Rittenhouse, the Ahmaud Arbery case, talking about Julius Jones, which was the first one I should have put in order. So we had all these different cases and circumstances, and just being able to hear her talk about these things, it blew my mind.
She's
I love
fucking brilliant, isn't she?
Yeah. Oh man.
Like,
and I can't shout her out enough. She works over there at Fite as a brand ambassador. She also has based the podcast and recently came out with a new edition of that based with Brad Palumbo, and just phenomenal stuff coming from her.
Hell yeah. I'm hoping to have her on the show here in the next couple of weeks. She needs to answer my email. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. If I'm like texting or DMing someone on like any form of like instant-ish messenger, even if it's Twitter DMs, and they say they take that conversation and move it to an email chain, I want to kill them instantly. Like I love Hannah, obviously, but like just and she's not the only person to do that to me, especially in the last like month and a half. There's just like it was like 5 or 6 people in a row that I was like either texting or DMing on Twitter or Facebook messaging, and they were like, "Oh, send me an email with like possible dates and like what you would want to talk about," and I'm like, no, just let's finish this conversation here and pick a date, for the love of God. I won't check my email. This is going to now take 7 days. The dates are going to change. I'm going to have other people actually respond. This is going to be a shit show. Just answer my fucking question. When do you
I've got you now. Let's just do this. Let's get it over with and let's move on with our lives. Yes. The frustration
a lot
is
more
real.
direct with that shit. Like there was one person that had just been like, I assume that this was unintentional and just like the ADHD of like who we are as people. But had been evading me. She's been evading me for like 2 months at this point. Like agreed to the thing, and then she was one of those people that sent me to the email. And then like I've confirmed 2 other people from her organization on the show, and still haven't had her on yet. And so finally, I just texted her. I was like, "Are you available this day or this day?" And she was like, "Yeah, that works." She didn't even pick a day. She just said yes. And I was like, "Okay, this day at this time, we're doing it." She was like, "Okay, send me an email." And I was like, "Okay."
Zargo. At least it was a confirmation email.
Right. And it was like a like Google Calendar invite email. It was like, but I was just like, oh my God.
Yeah. No, the frustration of like moving to an email. So I am the worst millennial you'll ever meet. I check my email once a month to look for an email that somebody said, "Hey, I just sent you to this," and that's it. Like I don't scroll through the rest of it. I can't clean it out. So it's just like, don't email me. Just send me a smoke signal. You have a better chance of me seeing that. Like leave me alone in my email box. Don't call me either. Like just text. Just text me.
Yeah, that's why. So when my Facebook got banned this week, I was terrified because I didn't know that we were mutuals on Twitter already, but for some reason I had forgotten that you had a Twitter, and I searched Jason Lyon and nothing came up because you're under Mr. Merica,
so don't worry.
And as you guys can see scrolling across the bottom here, go follow him on Twitter. But I was like, I have no idea how to get a hold of Jason and send him the link for the show, because I don't even have your email, let alone do I think that you would check it if I could scrounge up some like Jason at muddiedwatersfreedom.com if that exists.
Definitely wouldn't check it if it existed.
Right. and then even when I did find you on Twitter, I was like, I don't know if he's the kind of person that goes on Twitter like once every 2 weeks and won't even see this DM either. Luckily, I'm having Jeremy Kaufman on tomorrow. Like I know that he's active on Twitter, so when I had to move the conversation to Twitter, I was like, all right, we should be fine there. But him and I didn't follow each other yet, so that would have been a DM request. So I was still kind of hesitant on that one too. And I'm like, I don't have either of these guys' numbers. I don't have any emails or anything else. I'm so reliant on Facebook Messenger to communicate.
Yeah, it's so much easier. Yeah, no, I got a message from Spike the other day, and I was like, "Hey, I saw this the next day. We got it." Like that's no, I love how interconnected we are as a society, and how at the same time, like one thing gets fractured and it's just like my entire world, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I give up. I'm going back to sleep. Leave me alone. Like
I had a 3-day ban, but it didn't mess with my messenger at all. But then I so I did a dumb thing. I got sent to Facebook jail for a meme, and then I reposted the meme the day I got out of Facebook jail because I was like, fuck it, guys. And so now I'm back in Facebook jail. And the first one was a 3-day ban. This one is a 7-day ban, which also the first one came along with a 29-day ban on live streaming.
Yeah.
So that's not a thing anymore.
That you just wanted to tell the Facebook gods you can give me all the punitive punishments that you want to, but the punitive systems don't work. You have to have a rehabilitative system. And if you're not going to rehabilitate me, then I'm going to reoffend with the same damn meme. There you go.
Exactly. But I was not expecting it to fuck up my messenger, and that has been absolutely
devastating.
It really is. Like, I mean, I work on a campaign. Most of my volunteers I talk to on Messenger, as well as my campaign manager and my candidate I talk to almost exclusively through Facebook Messenger. I'm like working partially as the fundraising director and the outreach director ish roles on the campaign too. So like a majority of my job is to like reach out to people through social media and bring them onto the campaign or get them involved somehow with the party. And like my life revolves around Facebook Messenger at a very heavy level. And so I think I'm just gonna not really use Facebook much going forward. I like fuck them. Like fuck, I'm just gonna not really use it and be good so that my messenger survives and still continue to use Facebook Messenger.
You could also, another good thing to do is to create a page for yourself. Have a sock account that is an admin on that page. If your main account gets banned, use a different device. Like if you have like a iPad or like something that's not normally connected to the internet, use just that for the sock account. That way you can continue to message through that page. You don't lose any contacts. You don't lose anything like that. And you have a means of being able to get through it, even if you accidentally pass that same meme when you get unbanned again.
So I posted on Twitter about this, and someone I posted that I got rebanned for the same meme, and someone was like, I want to see the full meme. So I put the meme in the replies, and then they were like, I'm gonna post it on Facebook. I'll report back. And like the next day they caught a 24-hour ban. They're like lols. So the meme it's like from Christmas Vacation. It's like Rusty and Chevy Chase's character, and the kid is like, Dad, do we really have to hang up all of these Christmas lights? And Chevy Chase is like, well, Rusty, just like Jeffrey Epstein, these lights aren't going to hang themselves.
I saw that meme and I was like, that's beautiful. That's amazing. Somebody's going to catch a ban over this.
And the thing is, they say that it goes against community standards because it depicts self-harm and suicide. And I'm like, no, it depicts the opposite of that. It's literally a joke about how not suiciding. Like, come on.
That's so frustrating.
It's funny. It's funny. Most of the bans like that I've caught, because even the only Twitter ban I've ever caught was for using the word suicide as a verb.
It's so frustrating because like these bans and like the censorship and everything else, these are rarely like an intelligent person looked at that and went, oh, he was making a joke and it's a bad joke. No, it's like, oh, he said suicide. Clearly he's advocating for people to commit suicide. It's like, what? Like it's yeah. I'm not gonna.
I told Hillary Clinton to quote, "Go suicide another pedo friend of yours." That got me banned for 3 days on Twitter.
I'm surprised it didn't catch you with a suicided. Talking about Hillary like that. But yeah, no. I bet if I look back, I have that meme post on Facebook.
So it was from early November when I posted it. So it was like a 2-month-old meme when they took it down. And they also like brought up some like comment that I made apparently in like August. They wouldn't tell me what the comment was, but just that it was like bullying or something. And I was like, okay.
I love their reasonings. I love it when they don't give you a reason either. You did some bad stuff. What did I do? Bad.
bad things. We had to. It was so bad we had to take it down, so we can't even show you what the bad thing was that you did.
It was bad.
It was so
That's
bad.
all you need to know. Bad.
So bad, guys.
But-
and that's why we're moving to Odyssey. And it looks like, from my initial observations, that this stream is on Odyssey and it's working correctly. I don't know if people can comment from Odyssey and if it will show up here. If you're watching on Odyssey, try and we'll see. I don't think that it's going to work with StreamYard, but fuck yeah, fuck Facebook, fuck YouTube. Odyssey and Float is where it's at. Starting with the next episode, since this actually worked, I wasn't going to do this just in case it wasn't working. Starting next episode, I'm just going to start putting the Odyssey link in the description on YouTube and like everything else. So it's just like, no, if you're watching this on anything else, go to Odyssey or Float.
Yes.
That's the goal. Because like we need to kill the big tech giants before they kill us.
Yes. Like, we're looking out at the across the country, and there's so many things that are going on that we just go, well, you know, we don't have to like that Facebook is banning these people. We don't have to like that Twitter's doing these things, but we have to, you know, we just have to let them do what they want to do because it's their private property, or you know, we've all seen those arguments, but it's like, hey, part of the thing of like us believing in anarchy and minarchy and classical liberalism is that we all believe that the market can have responses. And so when something like Odyssey pops up, we say, hey, that's a better idea. Here's why. We start moving over to it. And as we start populating these things, sorry, I dove into like looking at social media and like movements of like these things. So as we move over to them and we say, hey, this is a better idea, then more people will move over and they'll say, hey, this is a better idea. And it causes this avalanche effect of like one snowflake, and pardon the term, but one snowflake leads to the avalanche. And so we can be a part of the snowflakes that lead to the avalanche. And so when Odyssey does this, we need to jump on board and we need to be a part of that change.
Hell yeah. And Matt Lacey is in the comments asking, am I doing Float too? Yes. And I'm sorry, like I was very much listening there. You paused because I know that I probably looked like I was zoned out because I was checking to make sure if the Float stream was working as well, and it is. So we are now like a-okay to go on Float and Odyssey for the rest of the streams. So yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. Because we can't wait for like each person to get like we can't do what I did in this situation where it took me getting banned on Facebook for me to actually finally put in the work to figuring out Odyssey and Float and how to like really work it. Because I've had both of these accounts for months with just zero content on there, or very little content on there. And I finally was like, you know, I'm going to do the thing. I reached out to Drew Hancock, who works for Odyssey, to help me get set up to live stream, and like he helped me do a couple other things that I wasn't sure how to do. And I like put in the work, and it was like a day of like looking into stuff, figuring out how stuff works, figuring out what you like and don't like. And you know, I'm on these things, and yeah. So don't do what I did, guys, and wait until you get banned, because if we can move our followings over now, we don't have to worry about getting banned anymore.
Yeah. Because imagine like if you coming from the political arena, right? The grassroots, of course, is like all the people. And then you have grass tops, or like people who run podcasts, you know, like you, David, or you know, everything else. When you leave, if you leave because you're banned on Facebook, you don't have your grassroots below the grass tops following you until after you come back. But if you are still able to be there, and so anyone listening to this, if you're still on Facebook, if you're unbanned like I am, hop over to Odyssey, hop over to Float, hop over to these alternative social media platforms that just need your support, that have already got the infrastructure there. They've already got the means and the ways. They just need you. And so when you move over, you say, hey, who else is on this platform? And you post that on Facebook, you post that on Twitter, you post that on Instagram, you post that on all the platforms you're already on, that everyone else is already on. And now we're going to bring them over. Right? We just saw TikTok go from absolutely nothing to now being the biggest site being used, bigger than Google.
which is nuts.
In a matter of a couple years. And it all took one person. And it was suddenly, you know, we had the conspiracy theories of this is a Chinese website that's just trying to take all of your information. We had big giant movements of
I still believe that, but it's okay.
Oh, I'm there. I'm there with it too. I didn't know how many other people were on it. But I'm okay with it. I'm on there all the time. And it's terrible. But it's like the guilty pleasure. But the point being is that like you can make something like this happen. And it just takes us going, let's get over there. Let's fight through the muck and be a part of this. And we can see a better future because of this.
Mm-hmm.
Don't like the censorship of Facebook? I don't either. Let's move over.
Yeah. Fuck yeah. And if we actually have a place to move to, and we have a following and we have a community and we have things that we enjoy on these other apps, because it's always difficult to like restart and like to get used to a new app, to find all your friends again, to make the new friends, to figure out who's on there, like figuring out how everything works. Like it's weird and it's clunky. You know, I don't love everything about Float. There are some things about it that I prefer to some of the other sites, but there's also some things that I'm like, I like. It doesn't have like the quote tweeting kind of function. It's just like retweet. And it's like, yeah, that's a little bit annoying because like I quote tweet a lot. It's like a majority of my tweeting is quote tweeting idiots. But yeah, like if we get used to these kinds of things, we build our communities out there. When something happens that triggers like a mass exodus, it actually means something, and people are actually going to exit. Because like, yeah, there was a report on like a mass exodus from Twitter and Facebook over this last week because of Marjorie Taylor Greene, but no one actually left. They all got Getter accounts and whatever other accounts, and like there was a big uptick in alternative sites, but no one really left Facebook. No one deleted their account. No one deleted their Twitter. That didn't happen. I didn't. Like I'm still gonna wait for this ban to come off of Facebook and then continue to use Facebook. Like I'm not deleting my account either. I've had that thing since I was like 12. I'm gonna keep it around. It's got like my entire life is saved on that account.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm gonna chill out and not actually get it removed, because like my whole life is there and documented, and it's a little cringy to go back and be like, on this day 12 years ago, you were posting about how great Tom Brady was.
Those Facebook memories, those can burn. Those can burn in a fire real quick.
Yeah. I don't know which is worse, like here's some horrible opinion you had, or like here's some cute picture with you and your ex.
Yeah. Hey, here's some pictures you didn't want to see. You want to see them now? No. I didn't want to see them last year either. I couldn't didn't want to see them a year before that. Just leave me alone. Please, restraining order. It's so bad. It's so bad. Or like the cringiest things is like I had bad takes, and then I went into the comment section and had even worse takes. And it's like, don't need those.
Yeah,
don't need those at all. But yeah, no.
So guys, just ditch Facebook, and then you won't have to put up with those pesky memories. Go use Float instead. I'm trying to get the Float founders on the show, hopefully in the next month or two as well. But yeah, I'm really excited to talk to Jeremy tomorrow, and like, because I think it's important to encourage people to do similar things. You know, don't build a different Odyssey, but like build other things that can compete with what we're working with. Build a StreamYard replacement so that I can have a site that does what I'm using right now that actually connects well with Float and Odyssey the way that StreamYard does with Twitter and YouTube, to actually make it easy to use. Go do that thing.
Yeah.
Please. I need it.
We need things that are going to support, that are going to connect with other liberty-minded platforms. We need to build an infrastructure that is liberty-oriented. This is like the thing when I used to talk about technocracy almost. The idea that technology was going to be able to control like the way our society functions. It was going to create laws without legislators. It was going to create basically a social norm all through these different systems. And when we looked at different programs like Gab.ai, when it started up, and they said, look, we're free speech absolutists. You can say what you want. As long as it's not an actual crime, you can say what you want to say. And I instantly knew like these were things that were going to be torn down bit by bit as quickly as they could. But we saw this, right? Because Google wouldn't allow it on their store. iTunes or Apple wouldn't allow it on their store. And so you had to go through back channels in order to download a Gab.ai and have it on there. And so we have to have a full-on infrastructure in order to connect all of these different liberty-minded organizations, these liberty programs, to be able to give them the infrastructure to be able to be successful, to change the way that we connect with one another, the ways that we change the ways that we connect with each other, and be able to bring about the actual impact and the actual differences that we seek to see.
Yeah. And you brought up a good point there about like the Google and Apple stores. Think big on what I just said. Maybe you're not building a StreamYard replacement, build an Apple replacement. Like figure out like build phones that don't spy on you, that don't give like everything to the NSA, that don't track your every move. Build phones that aren't automatically scraping all of your data and selling it to the highest bidder, and ones that have an app store that's going to have all of these apps on it, regardless of how the general public feels about it. Go do that thing. That'd be dope.
That'd be phenomenal. I'd be on board.
I mean, it's going to be necessary. Like the inevitable conclusion of this storyline, right? I mean, I've got an iPhone too, and I do love iPhones for the usability of them. I actually just got a new laptop for Christmas, and it's a MacBook also.
Connectivity, phenomenal.
I'm such a fan of Apple. So I would hope that whoever does this does it from an Apple background instead of a Windows one, because that would be great. But maybe we can do both. Maybe it's better. I don't know. Do your thing, guys. But the inevitable logical conclusion to this storyline is we're not going to be able to use iPhones in the next, I don't know, maybe it's a decade, maybe it's 2 years, maybe it's 30 years, but there's going to be a time where these are going to be so connected to the government and to the people that want to take us down for the things that you and I say on a daily basis publicly, that we're not going to be able to carry an iPhone around, because we're going to have to be actively evading government agencies. And we're going to still need to be able to call people while we're doing that.
Yep. And thankfully, right now, we've got some apps that'll be able to do that, but we need to have the bigger, better things. We need to have the full-on phones. Mm-hmm. We need to be able to take those to the next level. We need to be able to have our cars not be tracked. We need to be able to make our movements and everything else. These are all things that,
We need to get Elon Musk more red-pilled and a little bit less of a Fed boy, so that Teslas can be like part of what you just mentioned. And I feel like he might have the money and the guts to try to build a replacement to Apple.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That would be phenomenal. You're absolutely right. Like, he needs to be less of a Fed boy. I feel like he's almost like an RLC type, right? He wants to feign like he's very much on the liberty side of things, but then he's like very much like a huge statist. And that we just got to purify him. We just got to purify him of like the statism, get rid of it, just clean it out, give him the exorcism, and have this guy go full on radical, like liberty, full on anarchy, and just go, let's break the people free. I think that would be phenomenal. And the waves of on social media that he's riding right now, if we can just impact him, if we can just touch him and change him.
That sounded unnecessarily sensual.
He would be engorged with
I hate you. Oh my god. Yeah, I mean, he's like almost a libertarian. He's like got a lot of good ideas, and he's coming from the right place on a lot of things, and he's like not quite libertarian. He's kind of like Gary Johnson, you know?
Yeah, that's a fantastic one. I gotta ask him about the Fed. Am I gonna hate Elon Musk on the Federal Reserve just as much as I do Gary Johnson? Who knows?
Probably.
Stay tuned for next episode of Probably.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of things that I disagree with him on, and like, there's plenty of like personal issues of like he's probably really not a good guy, like the heart of hearts, but I don't care.
Yeah, I've never. There's one thing that like really stood out for me, and this comes from my conservative side. But I used to listen to Dennis Prager a lot. Big radio show host for the last like 30, 40 years or whatever.
Yeah.
But one of the words of wisdom that he had that I still agree with is, do you want your doctor to be good at being a doctor or to be a good person? And I want my doctor to be a good doctor. Because what I want them for is what matters to me of what they're good or bad at. Now, of course, when we have, if you're a business owner, you want to have good employees. You would love for them to be a good person, but that should not be your utmost priority. You want to have somebody who's going to be a good employee, that you can trust them on the job site, that they're going to be able to do what you need them to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so the same thing with Elon Musk. I don't think that he will necessarily always be a great guy, but if he does the right things and does what we need him to without having to control him in any serious way, be good. Be good at what we need you for.
Yeah. Dennis Prager was one of like the first people, like as I started doing social media, though, like I don't want to call it, like, I'm not an influencer. That's the wrong word. Like when I started like actually doing social media instead of just like being on social media, I guess, which sounds super fucking gay. And I kind of hate the fact that I did that to begin with and regret it heavily, in some ways. But like, it started off basically with me dunking on Dennis Prager and Tommy Lauren. Like those were my two favorite people to
very
dunk on.
dunkable people.
I will never forget, there was a PragerU video on Facebook that where he was talking about like identity politics and how bad it is. And you know, the points that he's making are almost okay. Like I actually don't heavily disagree with what he's saying for the most part, but he's talking about how like identifying based on race or anything else is like bad, and drawing these lines is bad. And like that's what the Nazis did. And as a Jew, I don't like it when people do things that sound like Nazi stuff. And I'm like, you just did the thing. You did the whole thing.
Yes. No. See, I immediately, one of the big things, the standout things is like the Israel versus Palestine thing, right? That's a huge thing for him. And he talks about it fairly consistently whenever he has the opportunity and somebody will listen. And he does the same identity politics there. And I'm like, if it's good, then it's
in
good.
that case, it's called racism, though. Like that's not even identity politics. It's just racism. That's like, as part of the race that's in this conflict, I know that our race is better than the other guys. So that's just racism. It's not even identity politics.
Yeah. So and I've had many discussions with people on this, and it's just like, I have no problem condemning both sides in this, right? Because they've both killed innocent people. They've both blown up schools. They've both like killed children intentionally. I'm like, can we just admit that, like, things like that are bad? No, because your side was justified and their side wasn't. Okay, I understand now. I don't care. But we see this all the time, and so like, yes, he is very dunkable. And Tommy Lauren, open up any YouTube video on her and just,
she is hot as
slam dunk contest all day.
Yeah. Yeah, she's a moron. Actually, I haven't interacted with her on social media in a very long time. But I used to like Instagram. It's weird. I actually kind of started off doing this kind of shit on Instagram, and since have like completely I haven't posted on Instagram in ages. But yeah, it was like on Instagram, I would just go after her constantly, and that's how I found like some of the people that brought me to Liberty. Twitter, like Steffi Cole, Hannah Cox.
Does Steffi still go after Steffi Cole, or does she change it?
Or
to
well,
Steffi
she's
Peterson?
Peterson now, right?
Yeah.
But at the time, Steffi Cole, I think
Yeah.
I was following her before they even started like dating or anything.
Yeah,
Like,
me too.
She was posting stuff about like being single and blah blah blah, and I was like, oh my god, she's like so hot and so awesome, and like that would be great. And she started dating Austin Peterson, and I was like, ew. But I've been told by a lot of people that Austin's like a really good guy, from a lot of people that I respect, and I'm like, all right, fine. Maybe he was just a douchebag online for a couple of years because Trump, and that's fine.
Yeah,
That's fine.
I've heard similar. So,
Mm.
no, and I'll just leave that. But Steffi was always cool too, and I liked Austin, and good guy on a lot of stuff, and agree with him on a lot of stuff, and of course we're gonna have those disagreements with him. But yeah, no, it's interesting because like I followed her first too, and like following her and just seeing her kind of grow into what she became, I was just like, man, this is amazing, and there's so many people throughout the movement just in the last 6 years that just have grown to be just people that we can all learn from. So
yeah, it's an awesome. It's become an awesome group of people to be a part of. But speaking of love and marriage and such, I'm curious. You are one of the many like cute Liberty couples that exist in the ether, and I'm curious. I want to hear that story. I want to know: were you both libertarians before you met, or did one of you convert the other? Tell me that story.
So when we met, so my wife grew up a very good Christian. She, her mother and her brother is a pastor. Her mother is very religious, and that's kind of was the guidance that she went through. And so from that, she was very conservative growing up as well. Just a different derivation of of conservatism than what I was raised in. And so we met 2015, and we ended up moving down to South Carolina in 2016. We both were conservatives at that time. I started getting involved with politics more heavily, started doing the video feeds and everything else, and I started making the conversion. And she was like, well, I'm still a Republican. I was like, that's fine, I'm a libertarian. And so slowly over time, I got her. She was like, I think it's time that I break up break it up, and I'm gonna start being a libertarian as well. So I finally broke her from that. So she, last I know, she is still considering herself a minarchist, which is fine. She's 99% of the way there. But so household is divided on whether the state is legitimate and tolerable or not.
I mean, if that's where you're divided, and it's not like should there be like mandatory gun buyback programs or not? Like,
I think we've got her fairly well radicalized on most of it. It's just kind of like the small lingering things. Like, let me ask you this: what was the last thing that you gave up from the scale of minarchy to anarchy? What was the last thing that fell for you?
So I think I'll give a two-part answer here, because I think the last like major issue that fell was open borders.
Okay.
Which someone I joined the party in 2016, voted for Gary Johnson, and then actively joined it January 2017, and it was mid 2019 when someone finally broke down the borders issue from a more anarchist perspective and was like, all borders are did the illegitimacy argument instead of the like individual rights argument. And it just, but combined it with the individual rights argument and like really sold it to me in a way that it clicked. And I was finally like, you know what, you're right. But then it was because at that time I was running for office, so like it would be hard to be a full-blown like anarchist fundamentally at that point. And I still believed that it was fixable, that like a constitutional libertarianist America would work. And then, like I said earlier, I joined the state committee, and that was a big thing. And then also I had a couple of people heavily influenced me, including Scott Horton, Kerry Wedler, and Reed Coverdale, all like at the same time. Reed fell the rest of the way down the rabbit hole about a month and a half before I did, and kind of just like reached up and grabbed me and dragged me down with him over just a couple of conversations of just like him just basically quoting Spooner to me and being like, no, it's all bullshit. And I was kind of like, I was really disenchanted by politics and electoralism, and I was like, you know what, you're right, this is all bullshit. So I don't know if there was like one major thing at the end there. It was kind of just like the concept of is it fixable, or is it just all garbage at this point? But I think the last key one was borders, which is why I'm so like open borders is the libertarian perspective. But if that's something that you disagree with us on and you still want to work with us, cool. That's cool. I'm not going to harp on that, because I was in the party running for office, working on campaigns for 3 years before I changed my mind on that one. So like, if you want to be like that, go for it. We'll get you eventually. You'll come to your senses eventually.
And for me, mine was always the court system. How are we going to get the courts to work in a free market without a government, without a centralized body? And finally I worked through that through a couple of people, conversations and lectures and everything else. But to your open borders point, like, I'm okay with people advocating for a border. What I'm not okay with is somebody saying what we have at the border right now works. And so as long as we can make that acknowledgement that what we have is not working, and we can work in the ways of how can we reform this, how can we take pragmatic steps to make this better for our society, for people wanting to come in, for people who are here and everything else, like that's where the libertarian position at a minimum is. And of course at the true Scotsman, the real libertarian position, of course, is that the border is illegitimate and is not a legitimate function of government, is not in the role of government, is we as the society get to determine who comes on our own property, and that's as far as where your rights end. So
I think like minimum you have to be like one of those like pro Ellis Island style immigration. Like if you're there, like you're an ally already, in my opinion. And anything past that is great. And it's obvious that there's going to be this divide over borders when we have the divide, the larger one over minarchy versus anarchy, because you can't really have minarchy without a border. If you still want to function as the United States of America, with Canada and Mexico being gigantic countries at either of our ends, and like the world still operating similarly to how it is, unfortunately, a border of some sort is going to exist, whether or not you police it or care about immigration in any way, shape, or form. It's going to exist, and then you have to like wonder, like, maybe should we protect that because it exists and people might want to infiltrate it for various reasons. And I think there's a logical reason to say yes in that situation. So if you're a minarchist that is like a constitutional conservative style libertarian, you're obviously not going to be open borders. I am a globalist anarchist that wants like global anarchy and there to be no borders at all anywhere on the earth. So like no border is legitimate in my mind unless everyone within it agreed to it. And in that case, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like, so along the path, I became a constitutionalist, and so like that was. I'm glad that you brought up Spooner, right? Whether it be one thing or another, this much is clear: the Constitution allows for the government that we have, or was unable to prevent it from doing so. In neither case, it's fit to or is unfit to exist.
Oh yeah.
But from that Constitution, the federal government was never even delegated authorities over our borders, and so it's like it falls. This is what I love about with constitutionalists. It's like, I'm a constitutionalist. That's why the government needs to protect the borders. It's like, I'm a constitutionalist, and it doesn't say that. Like, I love it. This was always my favorite thing to do when I was a constitutionalist, because I was a libertarian and a constitutionalist. And I thought like that would be the strong middle ground. That was going to be the thing that was going to unite people to say, I believe in the Constitution too. And we have to believe in libertarianism, because so much of that document falls in line with what our values are. A small limited government only to what was enumerated within the compact of what the states had delegated from its own powers to it, or from the people to it. And you know, as Spooner said, nah. So we're stuck with this giant overbearing government, and so much of it is just unconstitutional, whether it's the spending, whether it's the rights, whether it's the surveillance, whether it's the controls, whether it's just all these levers of powers that they've just manifested to themselves. And then, you know, the borders itself, with it being the first 100 years of this nation being an open border nation, you have to wonder how it manifested those powers to itself to begin with.
Right. What's really struck me interesting, reading up on like specifically Spooner, and I just finished On Civil Disobedience and Life Without Principle by Henry David Thoreau, and I never really thought about the fact that people were alive for both revolutions. And people wrote through both revolutions, or at least maybe they weren't around for like 1776 and 1861, but they were around for like 1810 when the Constitution was getting argued over.
Yeah.
And then we're still around 50 years later writing about the Civil War, or like 10, 15 years before the Civil War, like saying it's about to happen. And it's a interesting perspective that I just, like reading history, they're different chapters.
Yeah.
Like, you go Revolutionary War, then you go Civil War, then you have the thing, and then World War I. Like in my mind, all of history is bookended by wars, because I was obsessed with war as a kid. Like every single English paper I ever did in all of high school had something to do with World War II. It was either about a person or an event or a place or something to do with World War II. Every single one.
And
I did one on Mussolini, and it was
every
great.
Call of Duty game, World War II. But World War II is like our favorite thing in all of history. Like, I hate
so much
to say
fun.
this, but can we have World War III so we could just have some new content? But but beyond the terribleness of
come on, guys, you've been holding out on season 3 for so long.
Yeah.
You got season 1 and season 2 like back to back, like
we've had teaser after
you even had characters that were the same actors in season 1 and season 2.
Yeah, we've had so many teasers. Just finally pull the trigger. Like, let's go.
We keep doing like Christmas specials and like little YouTube shorts, but we want a whole season, guys.
But yeah, so it's amazing, because I recently read a fact, and I apologize, I don't remember which president it was. I think it was like the 16th president or something, 17th, some late teen president. His great grandchildren are still alive to this day, or great grandchildren, something to that effect, because they were all born late in life, and they were all incredibly long living. And it was insane, because it was like they were having children like 45, 50 years old or something to that effect. And it was just like this long thing where, of course, men can have children till whenever, and it just basically increases the rate of like some of the birth defects and everything else. But like, you're fine. It's the women that have kind of the chronological clock. And so it was like all these men that were created, and they were having children late in life, and it just like drawn it out, and it's just like we're talking 200 years ago.
Yeah.
Fuck. It just put it all into perspective for me.
Yeah.
Like 200 years ago, all this was happening. And it's like, I feel really old because I'm a third of a century old now.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's actually really funny because like we just finished 2020, we're going to do 24. And, you know, there's a bunch of people that think the election this past year was stolen or whatever. 200 years ago, 1824, the election was literally stolen. But that was Andrew Jackson versus John Quincy Adams. Like, that was 200 years ago. Like, yeah, it is nuts. That's why I like international travel, and I'm really glad that I got to do that as a kid a lot, because, you know, like I did domestic travel a lot too. But like, so I went to Mount Vernon as a kid and was like, oh, I'm walking where George Washington walked, and like, this is really awesome. And then the next year I went to, or 2 years later, I went to Turkey on a missions trip, and we toured the ruins of Ephesus. And so like, I'm standing where Cleopatra and Julius Caesar stood. And over here, I'm standing on the stage of an amphitheater that like the Apostle Paul preached from. Like, is just considerably more mind-blowing than like, oh, George Washington.
Yeah. And what's like even more mind-blowing when we think about just 200 years ago.
It was Peter, not Paul. Sorry, gotta clarify that.
No, you're good. Just 200 years ago, basically, when our government was brand new still. This is like the longest standing government in history. Well, not in history. This is the longest standing government today. What we have now. Every other government has broken, fractured, and changed up the way that they're functioning since the inception of the American government.
It's about to come down.
It's about to come down.
Empires last for 200 years. We're coming up on that mark. And
and so
we passed that mark actually.
Yeah,
well, actually, I think they averaged 250 years, right? So, and we're at like 230. So,
and what's interesting is like from a historical point of view, we are way off topic, and I love this. From a historical point of view, like whenever you have like any form of democracy, where it leads to is usually towards a dictatorship. What we have seen in the history of America is more and more power being ceded to the President of the United States. More of Congress's powers have been abdicated to them. The judicial branch is not doing anything in order to, even though it would have created this authority to itself, has not doing much of anything to stop unconstitutional acts from the other branches and everything else. And so what we have is we have literally building over time a slow dictatorship. And now what we're seeing recently from the Texas abortion bill, where they're able to supersede the Constitution by saying, look, we're going to bring it to civil court, pay snitches to do this. If that wasn't controversial enough for some people, then now if we look over at Gavin Newsom over in California, and he says, we're going to do the same thing, but with guns. And so now we have the civil courts potentially going on that. Now we have the playbook for the federal government, for the president of the United States to become a dictator by just saying, we don't need to make criminal charges. We just need to make civil charges and destroy people's lives and their livelihood by going through this. Congratulations, America. You now know the playbook.
Yep. Yeah. And like, we were all talking about that when Texas started doing this. Like, I know Spike was going really hard. And was probably the most public person that gets to say I told you so. But like I was in the trenches with him. I'm like a bunch of us were, and it was like, this is bad. I don't give a fuck what you think about abortion. The way they're doing this is bad. This is going to be really, really, really bad. Don't do this.
Yeah.
Stop. And then California came out with their thing, and we were like, I told you so. The fuck? When will people listen? Like, how many times do we get to I told you so and then just die off? Like, it's just constant, like, agonizing, like, predicting things, then they happen, and then still no one gives a shit what we have to say.
It got Spike over here. We can't expect people to all be at Spike's level. No, you're absolutely right, and that's the frustrating thing. We could be right every time, and as long as they have a different perspective as to why it happened, instead of hey, maybe these libertarians are onto something, we will continue to be the outlier.
Yeah,
it's frustrating. It really is, but.
Well, before we wrap up, I want to give you a chance to tell people about your show and what it's about and what you do on it and where they can find it and how they can follow you.
I appreciate that so much. Yeah. So first of all, thank you so much for having me on tonight, David. This is phenomenal. I love these conversations. I love that we like don't have much of an agenda. We just let it all go and we hit so many huge hit markers on so many different topics. But yeah, so if you guys are interested in kind of a little bit of my perspective, but more of all my guest perspectives, I'm sure you'll see David coming on to the show here soon, as I'm going to be following up with him on this. But I run a show every Monday night at 8 p.m. ish Eastern on Muddy Waters Media. You can find us on Facebook, on YouTube, on Float, on Twitter, on Twitch. And if you can't catch us live, you can find us on your favorite podcast app, any and all of them. But you can also find us at muddywatersmedia.com. So on Monday nights, 8 p.m., I have a fantastic guest come on, and we take a dive into one specific topic or into a plethora of topics within one category, to be able to give you guys an understanding of where we're coming from, what the libertarian position is, what the Republicans are saying, the Republicans, the Democrats, and to be able to give you a good wealth of knowledge around this so you can go out there and you can help pursue lighting those bushes of and set them ablaze with the fires of liberty to make an impact in our communities. And so it's just an opportunity there for that. And of course, I'm just part of one of many on the lineup, as what we've talked about. You know, I am the last stone in this, but plenty of shows there on Muddy Waters Media on all of our platforms, Monday through Thursday, Friday, Saturday, something like that. I don't remember how far we are right now. But it is one hell of a week every single week. So you guys got to make sure you guys are hopping over there, checking this out, and you will see David on there soon enough.
Yeah, I admit to a lot of people that I don't watch many podcasts. In fact, I very rarely watch any at all. I tune into Muddied Waters Media at least once a week. So that's honestly that's saying a lot. If you care about my opinion, that is. It's one of the few channels that I actually partake in, because I listen to y'all talk all the time. Like, I don't need to sit here and watch it. I'd rather just have you on and talk to you.
Yeah. Oh, it's so much better when you can have that back and forth dialect. I love it.
I very much watch podcasts for the guests, like regardless of who the host is. Like even Spike, I won't watch it. I've watched maybe 3 of his episodes. Most notably the one with Michael Bolden, because I'm a huge fan of the 10th Amendment Center and Michael Bolden, and that episode was awesome and actually spurred a rebrand of my show, which ended up with Michael Bolden coming on my show, which was
that's beautiful.
One of my favorite episodes I've ever done. But yeah, it's always for the guests. So I said I was watching your episode with Hannah Cox earlier, because Hannah's awesome and definitely
phenomenal. Yeah.
Also, guys, tune into their Zoom live stream thingamajiggies. What are they, monthly?
They are monthly, so it's the second Thursday of every month. So I think next Thursday at 8 p.m. ish Eastern, so that'll be January 13th. For anyone who's a paid subscriber, they are invited to join us on Zoom for an hour-ish. There's a lot of issues when it comes to Muddy Waters Media, because we're on time-ish. And so 8 p.m.-ish for about an hour-ish with the subscriber-ish lists-ish. It's a lot of fun-ish.
It's a hoot.
Ish.
So, guys, you heard him. Go on over to muddiedwatersofreedom.com. what is it like this? Is it a subscribe button or a donate
So
button or a
that
join
one would
button?
be Anchor. Yeah, so it'd be
Anchor.
anchor.fm/muddied-waters/subscribe. So that would be the podcast. And so if you guys are also, while you're over there, you guys can also make an Anchor call-in moment, and you'll actually get your questions answered by Matt and Spike on their shows Tuesday nights. So it's another fun thing for you guys all. You don't have to pay for that.
Nice.
So.
I've still yet to actually use that function for any of my friends' shows that do those. I need to start doing those more.
I can't do it. I've tried. I'm pardon the term that I'm about to use, but I'm fucking retarded when it comes to using technology. Can't get it to work. Tried with my phone, computer, doesn't work. Just give it up.
Fair enough. Well, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Jason, thanks for coming on. This was awesome.
Always a pleasure. Appreciate it so much.
Yeah. We'll be back here, as I've said multiple times. More times than I think I've ever done on an episode is pitched tomorrow's episode. We'll be back here tomorrow with Jeremy Kaufman. I am really stoked about this episode. It so far hasn't caused too much backlash. I was a little bit worried. I haven't really gotten any yet. And so I think we can just focus on the business and the productiveness of that conversation. I'm excited about that. So check us back out tomorrow. Until then, keep up the fight.
Shut up and sit down.